Welcome to Friday Focus from Payments Unpacked. If you found us last week, you found us by chance because I didn't announce I was going live at 1 o'clock on a Friday. This week we have announced it, and it's good to see folk joining. So those that have joined, thank you so much. Some of the names I see on the screen, I know as Payments Unpacked subscribers, so it's great to have you on here. Anyway, let's start off with this week's stories from Payments Unpacked. There is, I guess, spoiler alert. There's a bit of a spoiler alert that there's a bit of a cash theme to today's Payments Unpacked update. Cash is interesting. I'm very much a digital payments guy, but sometimes cash makes a story for good reasons. And we're going to cover some of those today. And within that, I say if you've got any questions you want to ask me anything or make a comment, do write a message at the below in the box below, and it'd be great to get some interaction going. But let's start off this week with something we published on Payments Unpacked. It was some research from Link. The Link are the operator of the UK's ATM scheme, and their research was looking at a cashless trend or an emerging cashless trend in UK's high street. Do you know, it's not long ago since you were very often presented with a cash-only sign at a shop window or a till, or maybe a sign that said minimum card spend £5 or £10. Otherwise, you had to pay by cash. And what Link have found out, and you'll find in their research, is that almost the tables have turned. And they're finding out, I think it was about 1,400 businesses across the UK that they surveyed. They found that in the last 12 months, 14% of those organisations had moved to a card only or a digital only or a non-cash solution at their counters. Quite a significant change. And the interesting thing about the Link research is why might that be the case? And there were three reasons that were top of the tree, all with very similar percentages given by the businesses: 20%, 21%, 22%. So a big three front runners there. One was fraud prevention as a reason to not take cash. The second was security as a reason to not take cash, and the third was declining demand for cash from their customers. The third one's quite interesting, isn't it? That folk are actually demanding to pay electronically. Just behind that was simplified bookkeeping at 19%. And 11 and 13% were two reasons. And I think these reasons actually probably are very, very significant, despite their lower percentage, is that that it's very difficult, becoming more difficult to deposit cash. Now, there is the post office and the banking hubs, and there are some bank branches left, but physically depositing cash was cited as a particular reason. And access to local branches was the other one. So although they're a bit less than the 21%, they are still very significant. The Link survey research also quotes a Treasury Select Committee here in the UK, where there was a concern expressed at Treasury Select Committee that we might be entering a two-tier high street. It's interesting because we're almost a two-tier high street the other way once upon a time when you could only use cash and it was difficult to use cards, but quite the reverse now. And I would say I'm an advocate for cashless payments. I'm a digital payment sort of guy, but I think payment choice is important. So we've got to make sure that people who want to pay with physical cash for the goods and services they consume can do that. And I'd rather see a business offer both cash and non-cash options equitably rather than jumping one side of the fence. Thank you for joining this Payments Unpacked Friday Focus. Please leave a message in the box below. If you've got a question, ask a question. I'll do my very best to answer. If you managed to find us last week on Friday Focus, remember it was unannounced, but quite a number of people did find it, both online and offline. We covered the Swedish central bank's press release where they were saying that Swedish residents should think about how much cash, physical cash, or how much cash they would need for essential services, goods and services they might procure in a week if things happened, if the global situations got worse or there was some sort of catastrophe with networks and electronics in Sweden. And they said, think about how much cash you might have and keep that at home. And they were saying that as you think about that, just remember the global card networks might fail. That's quite remarkable, isn't it? Can you remember the last time Visa and MasterCard failed? They said you might want to carry a card that's on the Visa network and on the MasterCard network. They questioned whether the authorities should be thinking more seriously about offline payments So you can still use cards if the systems are down. And they said, a lot of us, me particularly, like a lot of people, are reliant on the tokenized card in our wallet on our phone. They're saying maybe you should carry a physical card as well in case the wallet goes down. Now, that was what we were talking about last week, I guess. I did a survey on Payments Unpacked about how much cash would you need if the networks went down just to survive for a week, for those essential spends. Now, these figures were given before the petrol and diesel pump prices went up this week. So I suspect the numbers might be different now if you were going to use cash to buy a tank full of fuel, if it was available. But these sort of poll questions were done before the rise in price at the forecourt of diesel and petrol. And 33% said, well, actually, if I needed enough cash for goods and services I'm going to buy, 33% said I'd probably need somewhere between £51 and £100. 22% were thinking, well, really, if I'm going to get along with this, I need more than £300. Now, you might think £300 is a lot of money to have for your goods and services that week, but how much does a tank of fuel cost? 70 quid, 80 quid, maybe a bit more? It doesn't take long to burn through that money, more than just your daily latte. Now, then I asked a second question. That second question said, in light of things that are going on, are you and what the Swedish central bank has said, are you thinking about holding more cash at home just in case as a contingency? And the thing that shocked me is that 60% of people said, yes, I'm certainly thinking about it. It's caused me to think. 60%. Absolutely remarkable. 30% said no, 10% said they don't know. But quite interesting survey results. So if you took part in the poll in Payments Unpacked this week, thank you so much. And that helped with those figures. If you don't subscribe to the Payments Unpacked newsletter, go to www.payments-unpacked.com. payments-unpacked.com. And it would be fantastic if you would sign up, and I can share these payments newsletters with you. Now, we've had a couple of stories about cash. Let's talk about digital payments. In the UK, we have a huge reliance upon faster payments and backs. We're back since probably the early 1970s with direct debit, faster payments since 2008. Absolutely embedded into the way that we make payments every day of this week. We know that the replacement for backs and faster payments, almost a like-for-like replacement, was going to be called new payment architecture. We know that's gone. It's just dead. And we know the authorities are thinking about a new retail payment infrastructure. Now, that new retail payment infrastructure, we have to remember, is not a direct replacement, probably, for faster payments and banks. It's thinking about new rails, new ways of exchanging information that allow a debit to appear in one place and a credit to appear in another place. And those new rails might be a distributed ledger technology. They might be file transfer. They could be SWIFT. They could be anything. But they're certainly thinking about other options than a direct replacement for what we have today. But intrinsically linked to that conversation about what rails should look like in the future, the authorities are also looking at new forms of money. So instead of this transfer of value from one bank account to another, instead of a reliance on cards, should we be looking at central bank digital currency? What is the role of a retail and a wholesale stablecoin in this picture? Are there some things that we haven't thought of in terms of new forms of money going forward? Now, there's a real danger there, isn't there, of course, that we spend so much time talking that we leave faster payments and backs stuck in aspic for even longer than they are today. So we've got to be careful and get this balance right about moving forward on backs and faster payments that we have a massive reliance on, so they do start to innovate and deliver better solutions for us, as well as look forward to a future state where we might have different forms of money, we might have different rails and everything else. If these replacement to backs and faster payments, if this new forms of money, if this new retail payments infrastructure is interesting to you, we've got a special newsletter. And let me just tell you, this newsletter is being received by folk with an open rate of over 60% on every email. Now, I'm quite chuffed about that. I think that's a nice number. Some of them are at 80, 90%. So we're massive numbers on these emails. We're taking you through the journey right from the announcement of the National Payments Vision right up to the 3 terms of references that the Bank of England issued this week to help engagement in the market in the discussions on this. What we do is we drop an email to you to introduce, and then every few days you get an email from National Payments Vision to Payments Forward Plan to Payments Strategy, right the way up to these terms of references that are issued today. this week, sorry. And then after that, you'll get everything in real time. If you don't get that email and retail payments infrastructure are your thing, go to newrpi.uk. So it's newrpi.uk and sign up, and we'll share. And they'll cascade through at a nice cadence. You can read and get to used to them, and then you'll be up to date and you'll get new information as and when it's published. The terms of reference this week are about engagement. So if you feel that you want to be engaged with the authorities, the bank, the PSR, the FCA, if you want to be engaged with the financial institutions in this country that are starting to design this thing, the Bank of England are keen for engagement, and they've issued 3 terms of reference: a payment user forum, a payment innovation design group, and a payments academic advisory group. So if you want to influence the way these things are going forward, go to newrpi.uk. You'll find one of those emails relates to the terms of reference, and you've got some links to apply. If you can't be bothered to do that, you can find it at the Bank of England's website as well, bankofengland.co.uk. So sign up. If the payments are your thing, if digital payments are your thing, please sign up. This is a Friday focus from Payments Unpacked, where we try and wrap up on what things are happening the week in a live environment. Naturally, it's unscripted. I've got a couple of notes on the book. You can probably see that appearing every now and again. But all these stories feature on payments-unpacked.com as a general story, and newrpi.uk if it's very specifically about the new retail payments infrastructure in the UK. So one of the fun stories we had this week is that Zippy's back. Now, for people of a certain age, you'll know Zippy. He had some friends. His friends were called Bungle, Matthew, and George. George, funny name for a hippo. But it was from the Rainbow program or children's program on ITV. I think it was probably in the 1980s. I don't think it was the 70s. And it seems so ancient that it couldn't have been the 90s. So let's guess the 80s. But Zippy was on there. And we had a bit of a play with words this week, because it's not a massive leap, is it, from Zippy to Zippay? And what's Zippay about? Well, Zippay is a new person-to-person payment service embedded in banking apps that's been put live this week by the incumbent Irish banks. So within your app, you can go in, you can click a Zippay product, and you can transfer up to €1,000 a day with a maximum payment value of a single payment of €500. Now, perfect if you want to cashless pay for the pizza last night to your friend, if you want to bung a tenner to your grandchild for the Christmas, or whatever you want to do. What a great solution, embedded in the banking app, so you can be absolutely confident from a security point of view. Some media outlets are reporting that the banks have done this. It's their second attempt, but the banks are doing this, launch Zippay as a challenge in terms of Revolut and their digital app and ways of making money, transferring money between people. So whether it is or not, that's what the media says. I think the main point is whoever you bank with in Ireland, you'll be able to do person-to-person payments using Zippy. Zippay, not far between the two. But if you look at Zippay, I would say to you, it looks like, it feels like, it smells like PayM. Because once upon a time, we had a person-to-person payment service in the UK. It was called PayM. Barclays went and did their own thing with Ping It, but it was there and available. We shuttered that service in 2023 with no real fanfare. Shutters pulled down, service stopped. That was finished. Interestingly, the payment system operator at the time said it was about payment types moving on and demands moving on. And Ireland are there launching Zippay this week. So a question, will Zippay succeed where PayM failed? Only time will tell. But I think if I lived in Ireland, I'd be pretty chuffed that I have an easy way of sending somebody some money for that curry last night or for the ticket for the cinema. Thank you for joining Payments Unpacked, Friday Focus from Payments Unpacked. A real privilege that you guys are joining. Thank you for that. Do leave a message or ask a question or even press the love heart. Bit of funny doing pressing a love heart for a payments podcast. But anyway, there's your opportunity to give a bit of feedback. We get to our last story, and I told you there was a cash theme in terms of this week's Friday Focus. And it has to be about Bank of England notes, about sterling notes, about pound notes in the United Kingdom. It's been quite across the BBC and Sky and other mainstream news outlets this week. And I can't remember the last time I touched a banknote. So I can't tell you who the current character's on. I know the Queen was on. I know the King is on. I know we've changed monarch in terms of on the notes. But who's on the £5, the £10, the 20, and the £50? I couldn't tell you. But Victoria Cleland, the chief cashier and executive director at the Bank of England, announced this week that following a poll with the public, they've decided to put wildlife characters or images on future banknotes. So we're going to say goodbye to Churchill on our notes. We're going to say goodbye to Alan Turing. We're going to say goodbye to Jane Austen. And King Charles III is going to be joined with, I don't know, a fox and a hedgehog? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think they've actually decided which wildlife characters. Is that important? I think it's a real shame. Whatever you think about Churchill, whatever you think about Turing, have you read Jane Austen? I haven't. But, to find some of those historical characters from the life and times of the United Kingdom seems to me to be a much better recognition than a hedgehog or a badger or a fox. But anyway, I don't touch pound notes, £5 notes, so it doesn't affect me, I guess. But we'll see those coming through. Well, we're coming to the end now of Payments Unpacked and Friday Focus. Thank you so much for joining our live and watching this video. Hopefully others will see it offline as well. It'd be great to get some feedback. If you don't already subscribe at payments-unpacked.com. It'd be great to share some of the Payments Unpacked news stories and videos through the course of a week with you. If payment rails are your thing, remember newrpi.uk. I'll put both of the links below in terms of the offline version. If you're in Berlin next week, it's Merchant Payment Excellence. Not a big conference for the UK world, but a massive conference for merchants across Europe or continental Europe, and for banks and fintechs across continental Europe. So I'll be around and about. I'll be at the Wolves dinner on, I think it's Wednesday. Come and say hello. I'll be wandering around the conference hall. So do come and say hello at Merchant Payment Excellence in the Intercontinental down by the zoo in Berlin. I'll be there next week. It'd be great to see you. Come and say hello. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to Friday Focus from Payments Unpacked. And we'll be back next week from Berlin. Goodbye.